My amplified unit, salute! Welcome to a special weekend edition of the Amped Up Podcast, featuring the SmackDown review from just last night, Friday, October the 13th, 2023, the return of Roman Reigns. Decided to get off his island of relevancy, or whatever island he was vacationing on. He put down the margarita, put down the martini, picked up the title, and decided to show up to work. And WWE planted a lot of seeds last night for WrestleMania, right? WWE has their dream opponent for Roman Reigns at Mania, and we're going to discuss who that is in this podcast. But in case they cannot get that individual, there's two viable audibles for WWE, and both of these individuals went face-to-face with Roman last night. We'll talk all about it, and BC's going to drop a fourth name on you guys. There's a possible fourth name that realistically could take on Roman at Mania. Whether you want to see it or not, I hear you, that's in the eye of the beholder, but you got to believe it's on the table. Especially if he returns next month. We'll talk all about it and the seeds that were planted setting up WrestleMania. We're also going to talk Jade Cargill debuting last night on SmackDown. If you blinked, you may have missed it, but she debuted last night. And the only question I have is this company seriously going to feed Jade Cargill to Charlie Flair right from the jump? Are we really doing that? Because when you talk seeds planted, that was planted last night. And you want to say, well, BC, that's never going to happen. Relax. They have high expectations for Jade Cargill. Paul Levesque has already said he's going to strap a rocket to her. Well, we heard that about Asuka in the past. Before you say, no, BC, they would never feed Jade to Charlie. My first thing I would tell you is, that's what we said about Asuka when she won the Royal Rumble and she was undefeated. And we knew that was the year, that was the time to win that title at that year's WrestleMania. Instead, she walked out of WrestleMania against Charlie Flair. She walked out no longer undefeated, and she walked out without a title. Charlie Flair defeated Asuka, and Asuka was never the same since, still to this day. And WWE has this new thing they're doing where wrestlers that just get to the main roster, they have them lose a bunch, struggle, and adversity. Are they really even contemplating putting Jade right in there with Charlie? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the debut of Jade last night and what it all leads to. Speaking of the females, there was a match last night which one female defeated the other. You can say, oh, that's good for her, but what it does for the one that lost is dumbfounding. None of it makes sense. We'll talk about it coming up in the podcast. A boost for the tag team division last night. Two separate segments. One was backstage and one was a match. And both is exactly what we need in the tag team division. If you're going to have an existent tag team division, this is what you're going to need. We'll discuss in today's review of SmackDown on the podcast. Also, has this company given up on Austin Theory? Wait till you hear how he was booked last night. And the main event, whoa, out of nowhere, like an RKO. A pretty badass finish to the show. And again, it makes you question the main event for Mania. A lot happened with Mania interest last night. We're going to go over all of it, guys, including a new general manager of SmackDown. Paul Levesque McMahon stood in the middle of the ring. He told Adam Pearce, your services are no longer needed on SmackDown. He introduces a pretty big name who gets no response last night, but BC is going to tell you exactly why nobody cared, because the dude is pretty badass. And it's a good addition to WWE, but I'm going to tell you why there was no reaction. And we're going to talk about what all this means going forward. And could this mean finally the return of one of my favorite female wrestlers in the world that should have never been out of the company? There's so much to talk about, man. As you can tell, this has been a long, cold open teaser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another big swig of my coffee. Hopefully you guys have a beverage of your choice. Hopefully your earbuds are locked in. Smash that up. Show the love and appreciation to the channel, and I will appreciate you and that. Come on back. Let's get Amplify. My amplified unit. Before we kick off this SmackDown review, a couple of things. First and foremost, there was a super chat, super thanks in yesterday's podcast. That thanks button down below. I did see that. I will give the proper shout out and appreciation. I think it was Colin, but I'll find out in a couple of minutes before we kick off the review. So I just want to give a pre-shout out to, I believe it was my tried and true subscriber, Colin. But I'll get to that in a minute. First, I want to propose a question to every single one of my Amplified Unit members, all my subscribers out there, anybody listening. And if you don't have a moment to participate, that's totally fine. Maybe you're cruising down the highway right now. You got BC blasting, but you got both hands on the wheel. You can't really help BC out with this little poll that I'm doing, this question that I have. So if you're down that highway, just keep blasting BC. That's totally fine. Maybe you're outside walking the dogs. You got Spanky on the right that you're trying to get the piss, and you got fucking Hank on the left that you're trying to have take a shit. Both dogs refusing to participate. You don't have time to help out BC with this question. Maybe you're in the supermarket. You got one of those triple wide strollers, right? You got 3 kids. And you're pushing them down the cereal aisle. They're trying to grab at everything. You ain't got time to help out BC with this question. It's fine. But if you have a moment, participate. Let's say that you are running WWE, or you're the head of creative. The point is, you have all the power to make the main event of WrestleMania. The only thing is, you have to have Roman Reigns in it defending his title. But you have 4 options. All right? A little bit of fantasy booking, but it's something that could actually be the case come WrestleMania. This could legitimately happen, guys. And if you watched SmackDown last night, they're already planting seeds for many possibilities for Mania. They've been teasing The Rock. You've had 2 face-offs last night, Roman, LA Knight, Roman, and Cody Rhodes. And then there's a 4th name that's being tossed around. So, if you have these 4 names to go against Roman, you can only choose one. You get to decide. You're running WWE's main event for WrestleMania. It all is on you. Do you go Roman versus The Rock at WrestleMania? Title on the line, dream match. Roman Rock. Is that what you do? And you set up the storyline, starting bare minimum at Royal Rumble. Or do you do Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, the rematch of a decision that should have been made this past year? Instead of laying next to a rubber chicken, Cody should have been holding that championship up high. We shouldn't have to wait another whole year for struggle and adversity to get the same moment we should have gotten a year earlier. Do you go Roman Cody, not Roman Rock? Option 3, do you go Roman Reigns versus LA Knight? Yeah. The fastest rising star, all the momentum in the world, a badass face-to-face last night, seeds planted. Could that blow the roof off the place if there is a roof where they're going at Mania 4? Is it Philadelphia? Do you do that? The moment that Cody had this year could easily be LA Knights for 40. But then Cody never gets his moment. The Rock dream match is off, but you get to see LA Knight Roman. Not only is it fresh, but does Knight walk out with that title? Man, goosebumps. Rock Roman, Cody Roman, LA Knight Roman, or choice 4. CM Punk is now in your company. Came back at Survivor Series Chicago. Do you bump it up? Like, the whole reason that Punk was pissed from the beginning and all the problems with WWE is because he felt he should be the main event of WrestleMania, the last match. Do you pump it up like this is Punk's time? Everybody is in his corner. This is it, 2024, WrestleMania 40, Philadelphia. Punk gets his moment. The main event defeats Roman, hoists the championship up. But the caveat is Roman ends up beating Punk. Because there's no way Punk can show up to 40, leapfrog the entire roster, and take the title from Roman. That's the caveat. Which do you choose for your main event? And then you have to decide what's your finish. Right? It's one thing to play fantasy booker, but you have to now book the finish. Because there's two viable options that could win the championship easily, right? Or three. Cody could easily defeat Rock or Roman at 40. Believable, long overdue, some would say. LA Knight could easily beat Roman and be the guy to do it. The Rock, whether you like it or not, could. What would be the point? He's beyond he's not even part-time. He shows up once every few years. He's going to be the one to defeat Roman to take the title? If that's the case, have it for not being with the title, nothing to do with the title, and then have Rock beat him. So the storyline is just who's the real tribal chief of the family. Then Rock can beat Roman, no problem. Title, I have an issue with that. I don't believe Rock should walk away with the title unless you have a big angle the next night on Monday Night Raw where the Bloodline beats him so badly they beat him out of WWE. The title's vacant, and now you have a more diabolical, vicious Roman recapturing the title. Unless you're doing a story like that, The Rock has no business taking it. And CM Punk, you give him everything, you pump up the storyline, everything is riding on it, but Punk fails. You only do that scenario, I feel, if what we're hearing is true, and I believe it is, whether they call the audible at 40 or not, that they want Roman to defeat Hulk Hogan's 1,473-day streak. Hogan is the third longest reign right now, and they don't want that. They want these records being broken. It's why you see the Bianca Belairs breaking records. It's why you see Charlie Flair breaking title records. It's why you see Roman Reigns breaking records. Gunther currently breaking records for the IC title. They want all new records. They want to get the old out, the new in. And they want Hulk Hogan no longer to be that 3. Well, as it stands right now, Roman is less than a year away of breaking Hulk Hogan's 1473 record. I believe Roman is around 1140 right now. So if you have Roman walking out with the title, that's a bold decision. And I believe only The Rock and CM Punk would be the only options to have Roman walk out with the title. Because if you stick Cody Rhodes and LA Knight in that match with Roman, that's a riot situation. Maybe not literally. It's professional wrestling. I don't think they take it that far. But in figurative speech, it's Cody or LA Knight or we riot type situation, right? I mean, the crowd, there's no way anybody could watch Cody and LA Knight for the second year in a row if it's Cody. But for the second year in a row, the top star just on its back looking up at the lights as Roman celebrates and we go off the air. Those are the 4 decisions. I know that's a lengthy question, but I gotta set it up for you, man. It's a big decision. And the reason I'm spending so much time on that question is because, guys, that's what WWE is faced with. That question isn't as fantasy as you believe. That's what they're screwing around with right now. They don't know. If you saw SmackDown last night, you know damn well they don't know. That's why you saw Roman face-to-face with Cody last night. That's why you saw Roman face-to-face with LA Knight, ending the show with a spear on Knight. That's why you're seeing all the back and forth, and The Rock planting seeds, Roman, and more interviews, talking more about the Rock match. There's 3 matches already on the table for WWE's main event at Mania. And on top of that, if Punk does come back at Survivor Series, the storyline is sitting in your lap. CM Punk wants that main event spot. CM Punk's going for the title. Could you imagine that story? Punk comes back after all this adversity and anger and conflict with WWE, and he comes back to win their championship. You could even have a confliction storyline where he's going to win the title and then he's going to go away from WWE, almost like they did with Cena. Remember? I'm going to win the title and then I'm out of here. There's so much you could do, and then all of a sudden he loses on the grandest stage. The shock and the awe. But you had to have known Punk wasn't coming back to actually win the title. This was just because Roman was always walking out of WrestleMania with the title because they want him to defeat Hulk Hogan's 1473. If that's the decision that they're going with, I don't see how you put LA Knight or Cody Rhodes into that match. Anyway, that was a lengthy question, but one that needed time because that's the dilemma. Aside from Punk, who could be entered into the equation. The only fantasy here is really bringing Punk into the equation. Everything else is on the table, guys. So if you're the head booker, who would you go with? Who would you go with? And if you are booking, if you do have an extra moment, how would you book the finish? Who walks out title champion? Is it worth breaking Hulk Hogan's record to have Roman keep the title for another year? Because that's what it would take. Before we get to the SmackDown review, a big shout out. It is indeed Colin who sent the coffee over to the channel via that thanks button down below. I call it super thanks, super chat. And it is a highlighted comment from Colin. I appreciate you, brother. One of my tried and trues. It's never needed, Colin, the extra coffees, bro. And you're a gold card member. You're a channel member anyway. So you're the highest level of respect and appreciation that you chuck to the channel. The fact that you chuck extra coffees, man, it's humbling. Absolutely never needed, always appreciated. Colin, I want to make sure that you get the proper shout out. And Colin says, even TNA back in the day, I didn't know that Dixie Carter was the owner of the company until around 2008-ish when she wasn't involved. Maybe 2012, says Colin, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the year-wise, but what Colin is talking about, by the way, in yesterday's podcast, we talked in great length about Tony Khan being the symbol of AEW. Tony Khan is the face of the company, right? And it's a great rant by Vince Russo, of all people. And I actually played that clip for you in yesterday's podcast because Vince Russo is right. It was a good discussion that had to be had, and BC didn't even think to discuss it. But Vince Russo is right. When you look at AEW, all the headlines, all of the interviews, everything is Tony Khan. Tony at all times. The wrestlers will do little interviews here and there, but they're nothing big. They never grab any of the limelight because Tony Khan makes sure it's him, his face, his words. And he's not good at it. He's not good at being the face of the company, nor should he be. So in yesterday's podcast, I was telling you guys, growing up, I never knew that Vince McMahon was the owner of WWE. He never made it known. And I'm talking for years. I was watching and I never knew. Until one time, a family member, maybe it was a stepdad, something said, hey, that's the owner, you know. And I go, no, that's the broadcaster. He's a commentator. No. Vince McMahon actually owns the company. And I kind of fought it a little bit. I think I would have known that. I mean, I see him every week. Nope. He was the owner. He just never made it known. He was just commentating. He was doing work, doing a job. But Vince was not until the whole screw job with Bret Hart, where he said, all right, gloves are off. We need the pop ratings. I'm a character. Everybody tells me anyway. I might as well be one on TV. And then Mr. McMahon was formed, and then the Stone Cold shit. But before that, Vince never made it known he didn't want to. It was business behind the scenes and then his job as a commentator. That's it. He didn't flaunt it around. He didn't need to be the face. He had his wrestlers be the face. And I told you guys at the end of yesterday's podcast, you know, back then, when you were a kid, you'd get excited when wrestlers were going on talk shows. Regis and Kathy Lee was the big talk show back in the day. Somebody brought up yesterday Arsenio Hall. Maybe it was Big Nang, maybe. I don't know. Arsenio Hall, and I remember The Warrior and other wrestlers would be on those shows. And it was a big deal, you know, because they were getting this mainstream press. And it wasn't Vince on these shows. I mean, he did them. Usually it was because of controversy. But if it was just promoting the show or an event, the wrestlers, man. And it was always a fun time. And with AEW, you just see Tony Khan, and it's never really positive because he just doesn't know how to give good interviews. He doesn't do good on social. He's just not good at being the face, nor should he be, of AEW. You have to let your talent speak for themselves. You have to let your talent usher in new audiences. You have to let your audience, especially casual fans, learn who these people are. And they're only going to find that as casual fans, casually by flipping through the channels and seeing a dude on a talk show or doing an interview or stumbling upon a podcast. It can't always be Tony. I mean, this whole thing seems to be started just as a little play toy for this dude. Like these human being wrestlers are just nothing more than action figures come to life because he's got the money to do such. And if he fails at something or doesn't pop the rating or beat WWE, he becomes a spoiled brat and starts absolutely going into childish tactics and tantrums. Again, that's just what it seems like, and it has to stop. If he can just slow his roll, put down the phone, stop with the 140 characters, no matter what's on his mind, and just play the head booker backstage, play the CEO, the owner of the company, play that role, and let the wrestlers do the interviews, let the wrestlers do the social, let the wrestlers be the emblem, the symbol of AEW. Anyway, that's a nice little side rant as well. Colin, great point, man. Dixie, I didn't watch a lot of the TNA Impact, so I don't know if Dixie was really telling everybody she was the owner from day one or she was just showing up on TV like Vince. But Colin says he didn't even know Dixie was the owner. They didn't really make it that big of a deal that she was in the beginning, in the early days. So maybe that's the case. I know for Vince it definitely was, and for AEW, Tony said from the jump he was not going to be a big face of the company. He ended up being the only face of the company. So, yeah, Colin, I'm just glad. That was toward the end of the podcast. So if you're ever wondering if Colin, how tried and true is Colin, he goes, that was an hour and 15-minute podcast nearly yesterday. That was toward the end. And Colin's making a comment about the end of that pod. Yeah, that's salute. Colin, brother, the fact that you got a gold card after your name, if that's not the utmost salute and appreciation I can give you, the fact that you listen to every second of these podcasts, Colin, I got to take a minute to give you an actual salute swig. To Colin, salute. I appreciate you, dude. And I appreciate the coffee. All right, guys. Now we can get into the SmackDown review. See, that's what I mean. It's a podcast. Relax. Lock in the earbuds. Go about your day. And these things are going to be long. I don't put out these little 5-10 minute little shit fest videos, man. This is a podcast. We're just going to shoot the shit, have discussions. It's all good. Everybody relax. BC, the review, man. Stop thinking Colin. All right, let's get into it, guys. Roman Reigns returns. First of all, John Cena kicks the show off. This was the season premiere, by the way. That's how it was being built up. Monday Night Raw is also a season premiere. So John Cena starts the show. Doesn't get too many words in, if any. Roman Reigns and the Bloodline come out. Roman Reigns, first time we've seen him in a while. Off the milk carton, off his island of relevancy, or his island that he was vacationing on, put down the margarita, put down the martini, picked up his championship, and came to work. What a concept. So Roman Reigns, John Cena face to face. Cena says, listen, I'm here to appreciate you. I'm going to acknowledge you. I'm going to appreciate you, tip my hat to you. I got no beef with you right now, to be honest. However, there is somebody that doesn't have those same sentiments. Insert the theme music of L.A. Knight. Yeah. Here comes L.A. Knight, and we got that face-to-face. Roman Reigns, L.A. Knight, face-to-face. They exchanged some words. This was good. It ends to a little friction after. I think Jimmy tried to attack LA Knight. LA Knight takes care of Jimmy. Roman tells Solo, forget about Cena. Take care of Knight. And so Solo actually speaks. He doesn't speak often, but he says, you, me, tonight. LA Knight's like, yeah. And that sets up the main event. So pretty good start with a lot of star power. John Cena, Roman Reigns, LA Knight. And again, it plants that seed. LA Knight and Roman Reigns, WrestleMania. If LA Knight just reaches a boiling point of momentum and fan response, I mean, Cody is you could easily say Cody's like the face of the company right now. You could easily say that. Man, if LA Knight gets so boiling hot, so white lightning hot, does Cody get bumped? They planted the seeds. Or do you do Knight at Royal Rumble and have Knight lose just to be the setup man to Cody? Kind of like what they did with Sammy at Elimination Chamber this year. Sammy had all the momentum in the world. You could easily say that he was the biggest star in the company. Some would say he was right there with Cody. Some would say even more. I didn't see that, but Sami Zayn was huge, and they had him just be the setup loss to Cody Rhodes. And he was the Elimination Chamber. And ever since, he was never really the same. He got a tag title at Mania, but then he just went through a whole 5-month period of just 6 months of just facing the Judgment Day with Kevin Owens. So Sami Zayn lost all the momentum. That's what I'm saying. If you just feed if you feed LA Knight to Roman just to set up a Mania match with somebody else, is that the best way to do LA Knight? Is now the time to do it? Raises questions. I truly believe this company doesn't know. They're trying to get The Rock, I feel. And if they can't get The Rock, they're going to decide between Cody and Knight. And that's why you saw that face-to-face, and that's how it ended. The night ended with Roman and LA Knight again. I'll get to that in a little bit. Could you imagine if they fast-track, no AJ Styles, they fast-track LA Knight and Roman for a crown jewel? Oh, bro, no way. Bam, zoom into a brick wall, dome piece first. You do not do that. And of course, Survivor Series would not be a one-on-one match with Roman. I believe you would do like a War Games, maybe with Roman in the Bloodline or something like that. Unless they put Judgment Day in the War Games. But I don't know about a hot start, but a good start to Raw, to SmackDown. It's not often I'm going to say a good start to Raw. So you know that was a BC botch. A good start to SmackDown. Now the first match of the night. This may come as a little bit of a shock to you guys, what I'm about to say about Pretty Deadly. But it's the truth. Pretty Deadly versus Butch and Holland. Pretty Deadly wins via the awe-inspiring, ultra-devastating front roll-up. Pretty Deadly wins via the fruitiest of roll-ups. However, it was very well done, so I'm not going to shit on this roll-up. Elton Prince is selling his shoulder injury to the point where it doesn't even look like he can even continue the match. So while referee Jessica Carr is attending to Prince, Kit Wilson kicks Holland upside his dome piece. And then Prince was playing possum the whole time, of course, as a true heel would do. So when Wilson kicks Holland upside his dome piece, Prince just jumps up right into the roll-up. Holland, that's why I hate roll-ups. I don't believe that Holland just is going to be just held down by a dude. But the roll-up was enough. Holland gets pinned and Pretty Deadly pick up a big W. And then you insert the post-match celebration where Prince is in the wheelchair. Kit Wilson is pushing him up on the staging area and they're gloating and bragging. Absolutely just making you just can't stand them. Guys, I gotta say, Pretty Deadly is so refreshing in this tag team division. They look like a team. They feel like a team. They act like a team. They work as a team. And more importantly, we believe they're a team. You know, too often, I guess you could say that that's the same thing we wanted for teams like Street Profits, Viking Raiders, right? They're real teams, but they're booked so poorly from day one that you can't care about them. You want to put believability into it, but the way they're booked, you're just looking at two Raiders. Street Profits, you're just looking at a comedy act. Until last night. I'll get to that in a minute, by the way. But up to this point, even with Bobby Lashley, the Profits, an afterthought. But Pretty Deadly, man, doing the antics like they're doing it. And winning the way they're winning. And just the believability factor. And so far, they've been booked correctly, even working around an injury with the comedy segments the last several weeks. I just feel like so far, Pretty Deadly's been booked correctly. And when that happens with a viable team, sky's the limit. This is what I always tell you guys about why booking matters and why we rant and we plead for this company to do better, because you're going to ruin talents if not. You know, we don't just bitch and moan just to hear ourselves speak. We want pro wrestling to be better. We want the shows to be better. It starts with the booking of these individuals. And when you don't get it, that's why we don't care about them, because they don't seem relevant or prestigious. There's no reason to care about these dudes if they're just 50-50 booked or worse. You kind of want to just take a nap during their matches. Pretty Deadly, man. We believe they're a team. You can put singles competitors together all you want, right? That's not tag teams. You could put Miz with Tommaso Ciampa. You could put Grayson Waller with Austin Theory. You could put Asuka with Charlie Flair. We're not going to believe they're tag teams. We're just not. Every once in a while, you'll strike gold by putting two singles competitors together. It just works. And they feel and act, look like a real team. You believe they're a team, like Tugboat. Remember Typhoon and Earthquake? They put them together and they form the Natural Disasters. Or Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and IRS. They put them together to form Money Incorporated. And you just sunk right into it pretty quickly. They were booked correctly from the jump. They looked it, they felt it, they acted like it, you believed it. And the booking is what puts it over the top to invest in it. Anyway, BC's going on one of his side rants, but tag team wrestling is desperately needing care the last several years in WWE. And a team like Pretty Deadly, of all the teams to come around in the last several years, for BC to say, that's a team you can work around. But you shouldn't be shocked. Hot take. I said the Iconics had a place in WWE. Iconic! You know, everybody was shitting on oh no, not the Iconics, right? They're winning tag titles at WrestleMania. Listen, BC understands, right? A lot of booking botches. If they were booked correctly, though, the Iconics could have been a mainstay staple in the women's tag division. A team that you could build a division around. That doesn't mean they're winning all their matches or holding tag titles, guys. It just means you finally are getting teams that you care about, that you actually don't mind seeing in there. And the Iconics, no, nobody's going to say they were the best wrestlers. Of course not. But they were a team. You believed it. It felt like it. They acted like it. They talked like it. You looked at them as a real team. Again, not just looked at them as a real team, but one that you cared about. Whether you booed them or cheered about them. Man, it was funny when they came out and just struck that iconic pose. Even BC was like, all right, I don't know how they're booking them, but it's pretty good. These two got a little gimmick. Pretty Deadly. Can you tell? I wasn't a fan going into last night of Pretty Deadly. I didn't not like them. I just wasn't a fan. They didn't do anything to really captivate BC in NXT or so far in WWE. I've been slowly, gradually, liking their little comedy segments and whatnot. But last night, man, they really made BC go, you book these two together, maybe you can start a real tag team division. And then it got even better, man. Speaking of tag teams and speaking of the Profits, a really well done backstage segment. It was during a Carlito interview backstage. Bobby Lashley interrupts Carlito. Now, they have a long history, of course, back, several, many years ago. Carlito's last run, Lashley was still around. And, man, what was that, 2002, 3? Something like that, right? Because I had a video game. It was Raw versus SmackDown. And I remember Carlito and Bobby were both on the game. And I would always, somehow get stuck with... I played GM mode, and I would always have Carlito and Bobby on my roster, and I would always have them facing each other for some reason. Because all the actual main event guys, I would always have locked up in matches, because I was trying to beat the rating of SmackDown. If you guys remember Raw vs. SmackDown, the video game, you know what I'm talking about, GM mode. And I would be GM of Raw, and I'd be trying to beat SmackDown's rating. So Carlito and Bobby would be like my mid-card. And I guess you could say I was doing Raw booking with them because I had nothing really for them. So I was doing the Monday Night Raw, the same match every week. So that's how I know it doesn't work, man, because I didn't pull in the ratings. And after a few months, I had to switch it up, and I never did that again. Same match every week. It was like even the video game audience knew that's not working, BC. Anyway, Carlito says, wouldn't it be something if my first match on SmackDown, back on SmackDown, is with Bobby Lashley? Let's rekindle this for one night. Lashley laughs it off, and he says he's not even dressed to compete. And almost immediately, the Street Profits attack Carlito with a steel chair and then issue a subsequent beatdown of Carlito. Now, guys, what I love about this is the intensity of the Profits was top-notch, amplified to the most amplified of measures. And on top of that, the lack of hesitation was massive. The best part of this is there was zero hesitation. The second Lashley laughed off the challenge of Carlito and backed up a step or two and said, I'm not even dressed, and he looks down, and when people do that, it's psychology 101. If you're ever in a conversation where you look, usually the person who you're talking to will like look in that vicinity or break like eye contact or something. So when he looks down, Carlito's kind of like, he's not looking at me in the eye anymore. Breaks that connection, and before you know it, boom, a steel chair hits Carlito. It's those little things that are not so little to the amplified man. And it makes a segment, it makes a character, it makes the situation that much more intense. And when you get that much more intense, you get that much more intrigue. When you have that much more intrigue, chances are you're captivated. And that was one of those captivating beatdowns. The Profits strike with intensity and without hesitation to help Bob Lashley. Very well done. Top notch. So backstage segment, very well done. And this is how the Street Profits need to be booked. If you're going to make us believe in them, give us a reason. If you're just going to form them together, you're just putting Bobby with a tag team. The Street Profits, that's all you're doing. They didn't know who their identity even was, guys. They didn't know what they were. Booking didn't know. Creative didn't. They're just like, wouldn't it be cool if we just do like a bootleg Hurt Business? No Cedric, no Shelton. We'll put the Street Profits in their place, and we'll kind of get a response from the crowd to see if we're going to turn them face or heel. No, you should already have that plan. You should dictate the crowd, not the crowd dictating the situation for your newly formed group. You should have a clear path as to what you want the crowd to feel. And if it doesn't work, the crowd will tell you. But they went into this not knowing. Half the time they were still comedy, the other half they were trying to be serious. And booking, they already lost several matches, and they just formed 2 months ago. So no, there was no reason to care about the Street Profits, much less look at them as an actual viable faction. And now, after a beating like that, now you're looking at them with this intensity, no hesitation, this dastardly heelish ways now that the Street Profits are fully tapping into. Now you can start to go, damn, you might not want to come across them. They're no longer debating, are they my friend? Should I not do this? Or is this about us now? Right? Should we listen to Bobby Lashley and we just have to show that ruthless aggression? Do we tap into that ruthless aggression? Or do we just say, you know what? No, we're going to do this the fair way. We're not going to, we're not going to do business like this. Last night, they definitively said, nope, we have this new side of us. This is who we are now. Like it or leave it, you're going to get it. I liked it. So I will not be leaving it. This is the Street Profits we need, man. And Bobby Lashley, this is the street business is what I call them. This is the street business that we need going forward. More of that intensity, more of that just no hesitation, balls to the wall, fully amplified mode. You should always be on that amplified mode. Make us care. Make us look at you and go, damn, that's a badass faction. Bayley. By the way, during the Adam Pearce and Jason Jordan and a lot of officials broke that up. They were finally able to get the Street Profits off of the street business, off of Carlito. It was really good to see Jason Jordan. Of course, you guys know Jordan, him and Gable. What happened to Jordan, unfortunately. He's been a producer and agent since. A lot of people don't realize that because he hasn't really been on TV, but he was right there front and center last night. Looks like they're going to do a little bit more with him on camera. Now, to end hour one, Bayley defeated Zelina Vega in legit 2 minutes via the Rose Plant finisher. Clearly trying to build up Bayley again, and that's great. But it is odd to do it at the expense of Vega, who we believe they were also trying to build up recently, right? I think it was several months ago, Backlash. I understand it was Puerto Rico, but Zelina Vega had a big moment, big match, right around the time that she was putting together a string of good matches, and we were hearing they were really going to give her a push. Then they throw her in this LWO faction, which from the jump we had high expectations, and just like the street business, they foiled those high expectations pretty quickly, and they fell to the wayside, and the LWO instantly became a non-factor. But you had all these string of good things for Zelina, the Puerto Rico match for the title. Who was that, Rhea Ripley? And then LWO, she's putting together good matches. We're hearing good things backstage that they want to give her the push. And all of a sudden, 2 minutes, she's losing almost jobber status via the Rose Plant finisher to Bayley. Again, Bayley desperately needs wins. She needed wins yesterday, last week, last month, last year. Bayley has been off. And creative and booking for Bayley has been off. Ever since the injury, when she came back, it's almost like they weren't prepared to have her back. They had nothing for her, and they just never even cared to have something for her. They don't know what they're doing with Bayley since she's gotten back from that injury. They don't know where she's going right now. A string of losses, and then she wins a squash match over Zelina Vega. I mean, this is so all over the place. And again, even if it's subconsciously, it's telling your audience, why should we really invest any care into Bayley? We like her. We want the best for her. But what are you telling us on screen that is making us, when she comes through the curtain, go, whoa, Bayley, this is going to be great. And unless you're doing that, it ain't going to work. Fans aren't going to care. It's I don't know what. Bayley is one of the best female wrestlers in the world, and I don't know what the failure to communicate is. Where's the lack of connection? Where's the divide? I understand about the injury, but you had all that time to have something amazing when she comes back, and it's like they had nothing the whole time. They just got word like a day earlier that she's been cleared after all those months off, and they're like, oh, wow, Bayley's still with us? She's still on the roster? The whole 9 months, 10 months, you should have been thinking of something. Anyway, Bayley defeats Zelina Vega. Post-match, Damage Control attacks Zelina so that Charlie Flair can play the hero and save the day. That's what happened, guys. Zelina already lost. Damage Control just puts a beating on her after so that Charlie runs to the ring, and all 3 members of Damage Control, including your champion EO, they all run away because one person, Charlie, is Super Flair. You can't beat Super Flair. Lame. Lame way to end hour 1. Again, for the most part, hour 1 was pretty decent, I felt. Pretty deadly. I'm really... In the Street Profits backstage segment. So, tag teams took the forefront in hour 1. Pretty deadly in Street Profits. I don't know if that keeps up or not. The start was pretty decent to set up the main event. But the end of hour 1, man... It's still the lack of connection with females in the WWE, and they're trying to find that good point of how to book them properly, you know? Shawn Michaels is doing decently in NXT, obviously, but Paul Levesque McMahon, and it's ironic because everybody praises Paul Levesque McMahon's NXT females, right? That's where he excelled. And on the main roster, Paul Levesque McMahon doesn't really know how to utilize his females correctly, and he's still struggling with that mightily. And you saw again last night, he doesn't know where to go with all of them. And they come across as irrelevant or just 50-50 booked into irrelevancy. It's a mishmash. It's sloppy booking. They have to tidy that ship up, man. You know, backstage in hour 2, Charlie Flair bumped into Jade Cargill of all people. Jade Cargill was on the show last night for a brief moment. Charlie turns around after talking to Pierce, and Pierce gave Charlie a title match next week, by the way. So we cannot get away from Charlie in the title. I told you guys when she took the pin at the pay-per-view, good, now just go away from the title. You can have good storylines because they're going to give you good storylines anyway, or try to, or at least push you. I can't say they give her good storylines that we care about, but she's always in the main story of the females. She's always in the title picture. So I said, good, Io beat you. That's it. Just let Io just stay away. Let Io have a title reign against other people. You don't always have to be in the title picture. And what do, guys? The pay-per-view was just last Saturday, and they already made a title match for next Friday night, this upcoming Friday. Charlie Flair versus Io. We can't get away from it. And I wouldn't put it past the company to give it to Charlie. And when Adam Pearce gave Charlie that match, she turns around and Jade Cargill is staring at her. Those are the seeds you want to plant for Cargill. All of the awesome matches that you can get with Cargill. And the first seeds you plant is with Charles Flair. Come on. It's not shade to Charlie. It really isn't. The question is, can we do better? Not a lot of us are going, wow, Jade versus Charlie is why Jade should be in WWE. No. Jade versus Asuka? Jade and Io, Jade and Bayley, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley, Jade Cargill. Guys, I would put together a list of like 15 females before I would even think of Charlie Flair. And those are the seeds you're planting for Jade. Just to be fed for the Charlie agenda? Very odd. Hour number 2 kicks off with Paul Levesque McMahon, Triple H, starting hour 2. Major announcement. Levesque McMahon says Adam Pearce will be getting a promotion. He will now be the general manager of a Monday Night Raw solely. So no more SmackDown for Mr. Pearce. He is going to be Monday Night Raw, which means H is now introducing a new general manager of SmackDown. But Dominic Mysterio would come to the ring, interrupting this announcement. The loud boos are far outweighing his words, and Levesque McMahon says, and I quote, "Wow, I always thought they were piping in that noise. But those are really loud," he says. So he's having some fun with the piped-in boos that we give Austin Theory. And even though he's having fun with it, guys, Dominic does get loud boos. Naturally, he does. However, it is true. I can confirm this. I've had many people tell me they were in those arenas and they absolutely heard it. But we can hear it. We can hear the click over and the non-realistic static when it's piped in. They do pipe in boos for Dominic, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because it's not needed. He gets legitimate, organic, loud boos. And did you see the new trick they did last night? Maybe they've been doing this. But they lowered Dominic's mic, guys. When Dominic was trying to yell, maybe it was to Aldis or something. Maybe Aldis H. Somebody was yelling. Maybe it was when Owens was already out there. They lowered his mic so that the boo... And you could hear because the mic was altered. It wasn't just lowered, it ended up being altered so that all you could hear is boos. So all these tricks are just not needed, man. Just let it be organic. That's why it's called organic. If you start manufacturing it and manipulating it, it's no longer organic and will eventually fall to the wayside. But Dominic is out there saying that this is all BS. Why are we talking about general managers? We want our tag titles back. And he's pissed off at Triple H because there's a tag title match coming up, but they were the number one contenders, and they're not in this title match coming up with Cody and Jay versus Waller and Theory. So while he's flipping out, Levesque McMahon says, well, you should be sending your complaints to the new general manager of SmackDown. And he introduces Nick Aldis. Aldis does not get a pop, unfortunately. No reaction at all. That was rough. That was rough to witness, especially if you're a fan of Aldis. You know all he's done in the business, in the industry. There was no reception at all. That crowd did not know who Aldis was. And there's a reason, guys. Because Aldis is established, trust me. But Aldis, he's not well known to the casual and family base. And you have to remember, that's the base that fills these arenas, especially in the small towns. So there's a reason they didn't know him. These are a lot of these audiences, guys, that you see on SmackDown and even Raw. Those are a lot of families and casual fans that make those shows. So if you're not more smart to the business and you don't watch other organizations or you don't know a lot of the behind the scenes goings-ons, if you will, you don't know Nick Aldis. So that was the main reason, a lot of casuals, a lot of a family base. And that's why they wait for like Charlie Flair returns and segments last night where she's the hero, because the casuals and the family base, they're going to cheer people like that in segments like that, right? They can't get away with that in the big cities. They know that. So they pull this type of shenanigans in these smaller towns so they can get the best possible reception. And they've always done that. Those are the people that are going to have, and this is not shade. These are the crowds you see show up to SmackDown and Raw. Those are the crowds that their bar is pretty standard. It's mid AF. Again, it's not shade. They're just going to have a good time, right? They're going to enjoy wrestling, BC, right? That's the term we always hear. Just enjoy wrestling. We shouldn't have to just enjoy. I say it all the time. You can enjoy a pasta dinner. You can enjoy a nice hot shower. You should be captivated and entertained by pro wrestling, not enjoy it like it's a pasta dinner. So, no, we don't have to just enjoy pro wrestling. We should raise our standards and demand that we get a good show. Whereas a lot of these fans that show up to these SmackDowns and Raws, guys, they're going to take whatever Vince McMahon or Paul Levesque McMahon, WWE as a whole, they're going to take whatever they dish out to them. And they'll sit there with a wooden bowl and wooden spoon and say, please, sir, can I have some more? Because they don't care. They're just out for a good night out and just enjoy pro wrestling, right? Their bar is mid and they're going to keep it there. And no matter what happens, they'll cheer it, whatever, and then they'll leave and go, wow, good show tonight. Nothing wrong with that. Unless you're tried and true like a lot of us in BC. And our bar is higher because we know pro wrestling shows should be better than what we've been getting for 10 years plus. We know these shows could be and should be much better. We do not just settle for everything they dish out at us. And because there's so many of these type of fans, casuals and families, and people just want a good night out, they can rest and coast. Show after show, week after week, month after month, year after year. We've seen it for 10 years. Vince McMahon has coasted for years and years because those fans are filling up these arenas still. They're willing to pay whatever. They're willing to come in droves. Meanwhile, the bigger cities and all of us diehards and tried and trues and the ones that do demand better, they can shut us out much easier because they go to a lot more of these small town arenas. And it's all about optics. See, they're cheering Charlie over here. See, this person is getting a reaction. We can manipulate and manufacture boos here. It's much easier than in New York or Chicago. So that's a whole little side rant on. I hope that you guys understand there's two sides of the fence when it comes to pro wrestling fans. And that's why when people say casuals aren't really existing anymore, I think Punk even said that one day, and I said, no, that's absolutely wrong. Bischoff was the first one to say, whoa, hold, casuals are there. Absolutely they are. And they are. Tuesday night you saw that. NXT versus AEW pulled over 1.5 million viewers combined. Guys, usually a Tuesday night show pulls anywhere from 6 to 8. Lately, 850 lately, but usually I'm 5 to 6 even. Wednesday night, they've been around 800,000. On a Tuesday night against Major League Baseball playoffs, they pulled 1.5 million plus wrestling fans. They're there. WrestleMania season, watch ratings go up. Watch how much interest is around WrestleMania season. Where are those fans the rest of the year? They're dormant. They're stagnant. They're gone. They're on milk cartons. They're away. They're on a private island. Who knows? But they're not watching the product. Those are casual fans. A lot of families come back. How do you get their attention, man? That's why I always say, put out the best possible product every week, every show, and your views will go up. Your ratings will be much more higher than they are. But there's two sides of the fan base. There's the tried and trues, the diehards. A lot of us are called smart fans because we know what's going on, yes, and we demand higher, or we have standards when we watch wrestling. We want better shows because we know this is not the best that these companies can do. There's nothing wrong with raising your standards and having expectations with the shows that you watch, especially when you know they could and should be better. And then there's those fans, again, it's not even shade, they're just out for a night out. Casuals, families, they just want to go and have a good time and enjoy wrestling. So, to wrap up that whole little side ranting conversation, you go back to Nick Aldis, and nobody knew who he was. And a lot of people are making a big deal out of that today, but I hope you know why that was. That was a casual, family-based audience. Again, nothing wrong with it, but it's sad when you don't know who Nick Aldis is. Former NWA TNA champion, busted his ass for years around the industry. And I believe still married to one of my favorite female wrestlers in the world, Mickie James. I believe. All apologies if they're not together anymore. But I believe they're still together and with kids. Mickey's in her 40s. We called her a bona fide, straight up MILF. Because Mickie James is still one of the most beautiful females in the world. I don't care if she's in her 40s or 50s plus. She's probably still going to be. But more than that, guys, she's one of the best female wrestlers in the world still to this day, honestly. I don't know how she got released in the round before the last round, but she was cut from the company. And I just don't know how you have Mickie James in your company and you can look at her and say, we have nothing for you. I'm dumbfounded by that. So with the relationship that they now have with Aldis, and he was a backstage producer for a while, guys, if you don't know. He was already been with WWE for a little while. Part-time interim basis as a producer. Now he's going to be on an on-camera role. Pretty cool. Hopefully, maybe a little bit, we can get Mickie James back, man. I don't know. I'm just saying this at least opens a door to it. A side window. Something. It opens up something, man. It crashes a Mack truck into a brick wall and creates an opening maybe for Mickie James to come back to WWE. It would really be cool to see her have another, not just a run, but a really good run that respectfully has a good send-off for her, because this was not the way to send her off. So what happens? Nick Aldis is the new general manager of SmackDown, and Aldis says that the first order of business that he has is to make sure that SmackDown is compensated for Jey Uso going to Raw. Remember that trade? I'm glad that we circled back and put a period on that. A lot of us thought it's typical WWE. They're not even going to come back to this. They're not going to give any reasoning. They're not going to bring it up again. No, they put a period on it. And he introduces Kevin Owens to SmackDown. Owens comes out. I think he delivers a stunner to Dominic, and then Aldis, Triple H, Adam Pearce, Kevin Owens, they all kind of laugh and celebrate together into a commercial. The reason I like this is we're breaking up Sammy and KO. As much as we like to see them together, they're real friends. They had nothing for them, guys. They won the title at WrestleMania, and then they were like, oh, that's all we have. You can go take on Judgment Day every week for the next 6 months, and then we'll come back and revisit this. So the one cool thing is that we don't have to see Sammy and KO. But then again, there's no real brand split, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if Sammy shows up on SmackDown starting next week. I mean, Dominic just walked down into a SmackDown ring. Full gear, everything. Nobody wanted to stop him at the door. Nobody was like, wait, you're a Raw star? He doesn't have a tag title. He's got an NXT championship. I guess does that just give him a visitor's pass to SmackDown as well as Raw too? Might as well. I mean, they're having NXT title matches on Raw and SmackDown lately. I guess that would give him a pass. Owens probably will be right back on Raw next week, taking on Judgment Day with Sammy. You never know. There's no real brand split, or at least they don't honor it. And when the company doesn't follow their own rules or brand split, why would the fans do such? But in this scenario, I like the decision. Break off Kevin, because Raw was starting to get a lot of... it was going to be a detriment to some of these top stars, right? Because think about it. You have Cody Rhodes. It's a damn good reception. Can be looked at as a top star. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Jey Uso gets a damn good reception. You have all four. What's going to happen is some of them are going to be flooded out, right? Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, you have nothing more for them as a tag team, so you have to split them up. But now you're going to be dividing the crowd. Who's going to be cheered more? Who's going to be kind of, he's the Marty Jannetty, right? I always hate saying that because I love Marty Jannetty. I love the Rockers. And without Marty, you don't have the Rockers, just like Shawn. But there's a saying in the business, if you're the lesser of the two, they say you're the Marty Jannetty of the two. Again, I can't stand that. I probably shouldn't have said that, but you guys know the phrase, so I used it. Much love to Marty Jannetty, man. I think somebody said in a documentary recently, if that's supposed to be a diss, that you're the Marty Jannetty of the two, you take that as a compliment. But the point is, you split them off. Who's going to get the bigger reset? Is it going to be Sammy? Can he ever get back to the momentum he had going into the Chamber when he got defeated by Roman and he's never been the same? And the way you feel about Sami Zayn has never gotten back to that point. He lost to Roman, and like many people that lose to Roman, they were never the same after. Booking didn't know what to do with him, had nothing for him. And you get what we got with Sammy the last 7 months. And with Kevin Owens, it is... up 5 steps, take him back a mile. Bring him up 12 steps, take him back a mile and a half. Give him 18 inches, take him back 18 miles. Kevin Owens is start, stop. You don't even know what to feel with the dude. You like the dude, you pop when he comes out, and then you're like, it's Owens. I mean, there's times he feels special, and then he's right back to like mid-card status. Then he's off the air for 3 weeks. Then he's on having a jobber match. Then, I mean, I don't know what they're doing with Owens. Jey Uso, we'll find out. It's one of my favorite tag teams, Jimmy and Jay. But as a solo competitor, we'll find out if this is a flash in the pan or if Jay is going to sustain this. Point is, they had a lot of top star power. They thought that Owens going over, Cody Rhodes is the guy anyway. If you're going to try to make something out of Sammy, I guess you can't do it with Owens on the roster. Jay is cutting into those receptions. They bring KO over to LA Knight, who's running that ship. And I guess they're going to equal out the top star power. I have no problem with this. That's the point, man. I'm going on about it because I'm thinking back on it as I'm talking about it, and it does open up a few doors. It's just about, are they going to give KO anything relevant? Or are we just going to see random, weird, boring matches with KO? You can put him on NXT, SmackDown, Raw, bring back WWE Superstars of Wrestling, Primetime Wrestling. You can bring back any show and put KO on it. If you're not going to give him something fun and intriguing, we're not going to care. But for now, I'll say this is a good move. Take him off of Raw. There's a lot of star power right now. That's the good news. And if you feel it's too stuffed, then there's going to be an odd man out, unfortunately. So if this is a way to alleviate that pressure, I'm down with it. We go into Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. The tag titles are on the line. This was a short match. Cody pins Theory off the Cody Cutter. Post-match, the Bloodline faces off with Cody and Jay at the top of the ramp. A real heated moment there. First real time that you saw Cody and Roman face-to-face in many months. And, you know, I like Cody's eyes because it was like you really believe that he was like, yeah, now I remember, like, you know, what this was all about. You know, that's the best way to put it. Like, he's looking at him like, yes, now I've been coasting this entire time, winning tag titles and smiling with my fancy suits and asking all the crowds, what do you want to talk about, with my little grin. But now I remember what happened at Mania. It was good. And Roman's just like, yep. Can I help you? I took care of you already. Can I help you? You don't want this again. So it was a good little face-to-face, man. That was the focal point. So it was good. It was good. They planted a seed of, you know, if we get Cody and Roman again, we want to be invested. And I think we will. I think the crowd would be electric. I think it would be a hot moment. There's no question. I don't think I ever denied that. I've always said you won't get that moment that we got at 39. Definitely not. But I'm not saying it won't be an electric atmosphere because by then, just like we were this year, it's time to take the title off. You know, but if they want to go to Hogan's record or whatever, or Cody doesn't even get his chance, I don't know. That's in the eye of the beholder. That's their decision. But I have none of these choices, Cody or LA, none of them are, I don't think, going to be bad. I think it's going to be fun, the road to it, and then the match. It's all about how do they finish it. But it was a very good face-to-face. I want to go back to Theory losing this match pretty quickly, and he's the one to eat the pin. I mean, have they finally just like given up with this whole Austin Theory is the next big thing in WWE? A lot of us like Theory, BC included. I see potential if done correctly, and we want the best for him. Those aren't just words. That's truth. I think it's safe to say we want the best for all these boys and gals, even the Nia Jaxes in the wrestling business. It's just about sometimes it just doesn't work. You have to go back to the drawing board. Or maybe you're just taking up a spot where somebody can do it better than you. And after years, maybe it's just not working. I don't know. But for Theory, it just wasn't working. It's just not. And they just pushed this guy nonstop. And finally, it looked like they just settled to just throwing him into a random singles tag team, right? Take a couple singles guys that they really don't know what to do with them. Thrust them together. That's the first sign that they have nothing for you. And then the way that Theory lost last night, that's the second sign that maybe they're finally loosening up a little bit on the theory that Austin Theory is the next big thing in WWE. Because without the crowd caring about you, you ain't the next big thing of anything. So again, the focus was on Roman and Cody's stare down last night, just like we saw on Monday, by the way. They're already planting WrestleMania seeds in case they can't get The Rock. And we saw that on Monday when Michael Cole was pressing Cody about finishing his story. Those were seeds planted. And then last night, to start the show and to end the show, we'll get to that in a minute, LA Knight and Roman planting seeds for that possible match. The Rock and Roman have been planting seeds. If Punk comes back next month, do they start planting those seeds for Mania? So that's what this was, guys. They still don't know really where they want to go, and they're just covering all bases right now. On first base, they got Cody Rhodes, the easy option. Just redo the match from 39. On second base, they have LA Knight. That's a good option. He's electric right now. Got all the momentum in the world. They could easily go with second base, LA Knight. On third base, you got The Rock. He's ready, man. Or should I say, CM Punk would be third base, right? That would be the wild card. He's on third. Out of nowhere, he's about to score, right? That's the dude that bunts and somehow winds up on third base. It was a bunt. The fact that he got on first base with a bunt is good enough, you would think. He somehow got on third base. He's about to score. CM Punk's on third base. That's a viable option for WrestleMania. And then home run status. Sitting there, scoring at home plate, is The Rock. That's where WWE would want to be, right? Rock and Roman is their first choice. So what they're doing is they're covering all the bases, just in case. Planting every which seed that needs to be planted, just in case it's time to see that full-blown grown tree. The fruits of their labor. The main event was LA Knight versus Solo Sikoa. Fix that a little bit. LA Knight versus Solo Sikoa. This was just an old-fashioned good wrestling match. Good guy versus bad guy. No flips, no dives, lots of punches, lots of kicks. Sloppy at times, and BC didn't give a flying boop. I didn't care. This just felt good. That's what LA Knight brings, just a believability. You know, it's like the MJFs in the Ultimate Warriors. Sorry, MJF. I know. Because MJF will tell you he's a damn good actual wrestler, whereas a lot of people say Warrior was one of the worst wrestlers. But no matter what, my point is that you don't have to do flips and dives and suicide dives and put your career on the line every other move, or captivate people to where they're going, wow, or this is awesome every 10 seconds. No, just make people believe. Just be a presence. Have an aura about you out there. Know when to sell properly. Have this appeal to you, right? That's what Warrior had. It doesn't matter if Warrior went out and had 2-minute matches and only did 3 or 4 moves. You went out there and you cared. LA Knight, he got this momentum and everything, and he's not that flashy. Him and Solo last night was an old school good guy versus bad guy, punches, kicks, sloppy at times match, and I was down with it. I don't care if it was 5, 10, or 25 minutes. I really appreciated that main event, man. It's really cool to see some of that old school wrestling starting to creep back. Everybody slow it down. Stop with the flips and dives. Sell more. Use more in-ring psychology. Bring back punches and kicks. And we'll be invested. If it's the right people and you're doing it correctly, the audience will be there. If you build it, they will come, is the old saying. Jimmy Uso hits the ring late, but Jonathan Cena cuts him off and delivers an attitude adjustment onto Jimmy Uso. Solo is pissed off. He delivers a spike to Cena, the Samoan spike. So now Cena and Jimmy are out of the equation. When Solo Sikoa turns around, he's met with a BTF finisher. LA Knight gets the pinfall over Solo. Yeah. Post-match, Roman Reigns delivers a badass spear tonight to take us off the air. And guys, when I say badass, it was like an RKO out of nowhere. It was so beautifully done. I had a very good friend over watching. She was on her computer. She was doing some business, but she happened to look up for the finish. LA Knight is celebrating on the ring post. Up on the turnbuckle. He gets off of it, and the way the camera angle was beautifully placed, you were just sticking with his reaction, his celebration. So when he gets off the turnbuckle, he turns around, and only then you see Roman already in the air delivering the spear. So my friend, she at the same time as me, we both audibly said, "Oh!" It's not often you do that watching a wrestling show, especially BC. I can be jaded to the finishes. But it was so out of nowhere that she just happened to look up like 5 seconds before. And we just see Roman flying into a spear, just taking out LA Knight badass. And we both were like, "Oh, damn." And she was like, those are the moments where she's like, "Damn, that was actually fun. That was good. That was well done." Very good spear there. And that's what I mean about planting those seeds for LA Knight. I don't know if I hope they don't rush it for like Crown Jewel or try to do something stupid for Survivor Series and let's just do a multi-man schmaz. That's fine. And then if you feed LA Knight to Roman at Royal Rumble, is it the Sami Zayn effect where afterwards LA Knight's never going to be the same? Man, they have options. This could be really fun. How they do this going into WrestleMania, starting right now, starting last night, we could get a lot of fun, good things going forward, stemming off of what we saw last night. It all comes down to everything being distributed correctly going forward, from the talent, what they're doing, stories, how it's presented. Man, there is good. I'm starting to see that this could be, if done correctly, one of the most intriguing WrestleMania seasons. Do they do it correctly? Or do they drop the ball? Oof. Name's BC Amplified. This has been the Amped Up Podcast, Saturday, October 14th, 2023, featuring the SmackDown review for the 13th of October. And until next time, and there will be that next time, Top Guys, we're out. BC saying check you. Appreciate you guys big time, man. Salute. Check you.